Hello, everyone, and welcome to Game On Reactions. And the season is over, and Arsenal came second. And it was a bit of a disappointment, I have to say. It was a kick in the teeth. It's been a couple of days since the season was over, a lot of time to reflect and think about what a season Arsenal had, what could have been, and yeah, so we've got some narratives that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the key players for Arsenal and other narratives as well. So let's get straight to it. First of all, I'm gonna start with my standout players for Arsenal this season, and I know a lot of people have done top players in the league and things like that, but this might surprise a number of you. The players that I've got in my top five. I'm gonna start number five, William Saliba. I think that William Saliba has arguably been the best defender in the league this season. I think we really saw a glimpse of what could have been if we just had William Saliba fit last season. Not last season, but the season before last. He's great on the ball. He's easy on the eye. He looks calm. He looks collected. Great partnership with Gabriel. I know there is a couple of people might be thinking actually that Gabriel, should be having that nod instead of Saliba. But I'll tell you why. I think that Saliba has been good. He averages over 2.8 tackles, every single game. And that, to put that into context, that is top five in the league right now, and 4.2 clearances per game. Listen, I just think that he's just been Arsenal's top player. I don't think that we could have done it without him. So Saliba gets my five. But let me know in the comment section who do you think would be your fifth best player for Arsenal. I think for me, without a shadow of that, Saliba is there. Number four, Declan Rice. Declan Rice. I know a lot of people will want to say that he should be higher on this list. But Declan Rice for me has, changed the way that Arsenal has been rock solid in defense. And, you can look at the Arsenal clean sheets. You can look at the Golden Glove in Raya. I honestly believe that without Declan Rice coming into the team, Raya doesn't win that Golden Boot. I don't think he does. I think Declan Rice has been that influential in the team. He's also contributed with goals, as well. And I think for me, that will be an aspect of the game that I would expect to see him do a little bit more in the next season, especially if he's playing as an eight, for Arsenal. I think he can pop in front of goals, and defensively he's very, very solid, winning tackles, stopping balls, making interceptions. I think he's just a class act. And who's talking about 100 million? I mean, listen, that is beyond the shadow of doubt the 100 million that has been paid on a player that nobody ever talks about. I mean, Grealish, Man City paid 100 million. People were questioning, whether should he have gone for 100 million, but there's no shadow of a doubt that 100 million was well spent. In fact, you could argue that we got him very cheap. So now the next player on this list might surprise a number of you, and I think there's going to be a bit of controversy on this player. But my third player on this list is Gabriel Martinelli. For me, I think he's been a key player for Arsenal as well. I know that he tailed off towards the end, but that's really because he wasn't really starting. And when he was starting, it was probably not himself. But I think that Martinelli carried that form from last season into this season. And I think on the left-hand side, he held that position, right. And listen, what, Arteta did towards the end, playing Trossard. Trossard deserved to play in the games because he was popping up with goals and popping up with assists. But, Martinelli got the team to the position where they were, so he scored big goals, again, Man City. He scored that, that goal against Man City. He scored big goals in big games, so for me, Martinelli is my number third player, for Arsenal. I know that, you might, say some other things. For me, Martinelli is number three. Now, the top two players for Arsenal, I went back and forth, on this. And to be fair, right, I could say either of these players could be number one, either of them could be number two. But I just had to go with Martin Odegaard as number two. I think that, to be honest, I really struggle with this one. I think he was actually my number one. But, when I look at who was number one and I look at what the person, does in the team, and I think about his influence in the team, I think listen, if you say Martin Odegaard is number one, I'm not going to disagree with you, because I think he's been that good, for Arsenal. I think he's gone up another level. But Martin Odegaard is the creative force in Arsenal, creative force in that midfield, pulls things together. He's the conductor. A lot of times, you watch his game and you see him putting his hand up, all the time, pointing to where things should be going. He's really the conductor on that field when it comes to creativity. And the thing I love about Martin Odegaard is that he's so assured of his own game that he can turn around and look at the game of others. And that, for me, is what you call captain material, where it's not just focusing on your own game. Some captains just like will lead by example. I know people say that he leads by example, but for me, I think on the pitch, he does more than just focus on his own play. I think, he also looks at what's happening to the other teams, making sure that people are doing the right things, when it comes to creatively, in the top end of the pitch. So for me, Martin Odegaard is my number two, player for Arsenal. Number one player, you know him, you know who it is, Starboy. It's got to be for me, Bukayo Saka. Bukayo Saka, for me, has changed Arsenal's life. If you remember that game back in the day, when Arteta was kind of a little bit struggling, and who did he look to? He looked to Bukayo Saka, he looked to Emile Smith-Rowe and Gabriel Martinelli. And out of all of those players, Saka has undoubtedly, been Arsenal's, best player. I think, it's not, I know we're talking about this season, but you cannot look past, what Saka has done for Arsenal in the last couple of seasons as well. I think he's right up there. Right now we're talking about, buying players for next season, and everyone is talking about, can we replace Saka? Is there someone that can come in for Saka? When Saka is not playing, what does Arsenal actually lose? For me, Saka, is right up there as the top, player, for Arsenal. He's very pivotal. His dribbling, his pace, his ability to create chances. For me, Saka, brings so much to Arsenal. And for me, that is my number one player, for Arsenal. Hey, listen, and those that are talking about Kai Havertz, listen, he's had a brilliant season. I completely get that. But he just doesn't make it to my top five. And the reasons are, one, he only played half of the season, let's be honest. That half that he played was really, really good. But Kai Havertz really only turned up at the start of the year. So I think, you've got to contribute to the team throughout the whole of the team, which is why I've gone for the list, and you might say, oh, there's a bit of hypocrisy with Martinelli, but Martinelli only, didn't play the last couple of games, and it wasn't because of him playing and not producing, so Kai Havertz was playing those games and not producing for a long, long time, and he came into form towards the end. So that, for me, is why he doesn't make the list. But a really, really honorable mention for Kai Havertz. I think he's been brilliant. Definitely did not expect that. I think I was one of those that just thought, wow, we've thrown 65 million down the drain, but he shut all of us up, right? So for me, Kai Havertz done very well, but just can't make it to the top five. I don't know what, everybody think, but put in the comment section, who do you think, is your best player for Arsenal this season? Do you agree with my list, or do you think that it should be someone else? Okay, all right. The other thing that I want to talk about is, the title race. Now, listen, Arsenal has done, something that even, the Arsene Wenger team, haven't really done. And that is, consistently get more points, every single season. If you look at Mikel Arteta since he came into the league, and yes, full disclosure, I wasn't one of the Mikel Arteta fans, but I am coming around. I am coming around. So well done. I know Kali and Femi and Face will be happy to hear this. I am coming around in terms of Mikel Arteta and what he's doing for Arsenal, but his points production every single season has been going up. And, and I talked about the last 10 games of the season. What you do in that last 10 games of the season tells me if you're ready to be able to go up against Manchester City. Because in the last 10 games of the season, they don't blink. So you have to be prepared to win every single game when it comes to that last, and that's it. That's all you have to do. But now you have to start working backwards. Once you've developed your ability to perfect that last 10 games, is now about how do you manage the rest of the season? How do you manage Christmas? How do you manage the international breaks? How do you manage, when the Champions League and the FA Cup, when you're playing, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. When you start playing games like that, how do you manage those games? And I think that Arsenal this season has really told me that they are ready. They're ready to push on. I think they're very, very close, we'll talk about, next season in another podcast. But for me, I think that Arsenal are very, very, very close, this season, and, could be winning the league, very, very soon. I don't know when, but I have this feeling that it is very, very soon. Listen, Declan Rice has come into the squad. Defensively, he's made us, strong. I've already talked about him in my top 5. Saliba has transformed Arsenal's defense. I know people might be saying, what about Raya? I'm not 100% yet on Raya. I think he's been part of a good defense, but I want to see more. I think that's fair. I think it's fair to ask to see more from Raya. Another season, I don't want to see some of the jittering that he was having during the game. I want to see a calm composure, from Raya, and then he might start to get, all the recognition that he's. But I know one thing that hasn't really been talked about, from Arsenal perspective, and and that's to focus on you. We've really, the team is, probably the youngest team, in the league. I know at one point it was the youngest team in the Premier League, and what Mikel Arteta has done, in terms of creating a team that is not just built for now, but also built for the future. I think that's got to be commendable, So yeah. So what next for Arsenal? I think for me, if they maintain this form, you look at the games, where they want to have those games back. The games against Fulham. You were leading that game and then you lost the game twice. First time you lost it, second time you drew it. First time you drew it, second time you lost it. The games against Aston Villa, the unfortunate calls, going in Newcastle. You kind of look at those games and you won those games back. And when you're going against City, you have to be near on, perfect. And I think Arsenal can do it. I think that's a wrap for me. My deep dive on the Arsenal and 2023-24 season. They've been a joy to watch. They've been standout performances. There've been great goals. There've been great display. Grounds that we've struggled in, we've gone there and we've gotten better. You're talking about Manchester United. We had a terrible record there. We went there, we won. Man City. Not a great record there. We went there, drew. Likes of Crystal Palace. Difficult places that we typically struggle in. Brighton. Great, good results. And listen, just need to keep that going, right, for the next season. And who knows? We could be doing an open top parade. Celebrating Arsenal's victory in the Premier League. And listen, it was another season in the Champions League. We haven't been there in over 14 years. And even to get to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, has to be commendable, from the team. So one step further, you get into the semi-finals, and who knows what could happen. You could just, be able to get into the finals on the Champions League. And that's something that hasn't been repeated since I think it was the 2006, season when with Aston Wenger had that crazy run to the Champions League final. So yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe in the channel. Over the break, we will be coming to you with content. We might be looking at creating some more shows, game on reaction, game on analysis. So put your comments in the chat section as well. Like and subscribe so you know when we post something. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.